Hey, everybody, this is Anthony Brogdon coming to you strongly from the Strong Inspirations channel, baby boy. We're going to blow you away today. And we're going to blow you away today because, sometimes when we talk about Black history, all we really talk about is the beat down and the dysfunction in the family. Like Black folks just said, okay, you win and it's a wrap. That's not what we're going to say today.
Nope.
It wasn't just a rap. We didn't just take it, right?
That's right.
So hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notifications button. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations because this is the kind of video and content that we put up here for you to know it's straight, no chaser. Oh, my God. And just in case, I got a movie out called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. It's 75 minutes of powerful information. If you don't have a DVD player, it's streaming too. You can watch it on your laptop, on your computer, on your cell phone, and maybe you can watch it on your watch. I don't know how they do it, but it's on Amazon. And then I got the book. It's called Black Business Book. This book got over 400 facts. Not 400, I'm sorry, I'm going back. It's 200. I got 400, I can tell you, but I stopped at 200 facts, and it goes from slavery to 1960, and I cover a little bit of everything. And one of the facts in the book is about something that happened in a town. There was a Bowie, Boley, Oklahoma, where they came through. They were trying to rob the bank. And the Black folks said, hey, you ain't taking my money, man. You and your boys got to get out of here and take
1932 in the New York Times.
Yeah. And there's another one in there. I can't remember it, about some Black folks that they know they was coming to town. So the Black folks got on the corner side or something like that. I'll read the book to you later. And the white folks came through, and the Black folks, they was winning for a little bit. But, white people, man, they come together and they got the sheriffs and all them on their side. And they had a few more guns, so the Black people had to retreat. But we took a couple of them out. We sure did. So get the movie, get the book, subscribe, all that stuff that I just told you. I'm ready to roll because I'm interested in hearing the win. Brother, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. Let's go with it. Come on, let's roll.
All right. I am Professor Damon Lamar Fordham. I'm the adjunct professor of history at Charleston Southern University in the Citadel, from where this is the Citadel Military College, where this is being broadcast as we speak. I'm the author of 3 books on South Carolina's African-American history. I've got 2 of them here, True Stories of Black South Carolina and Voices of Black South Carolina. Both are available on Amazon. And I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are in one of these books, as well as some lesser known aspects of major things that we've been taught about.
Yeah, right on. I appreciate it. And you got books out. So you so bad you wrote it down.
That's right. And I also have a YouTube channel too.
Yeah, we got to write it down. So everybody, we're going to put a link to his books on the back of it. So if you don't mind, I ask you now, you a professor at Citadel. What is that? That's a military school. What's the story?
Yes, it's a military college down in Charleston, South Carolina. And ironically, it was formed originally as, get this, it was originally formed as a fort in 1822 after the Denmark Vesey slave rebellion in Charleston to put down future slave rebellions, and it became a school in 1842. And it integrated in 1966. And the first African-American graduate, Charles Foster, graduated in May of 1970, the same month I graduated from a segregated kindergarten 2 blocks away.
Oh my God. Okay, now hold on, go back to now. It was a military, what did put slave revolts? What did you say there? Kind of give us a little bit.
Back in 1822, we had the Denmark Vesey slave rebellion in Charleston that was put down after a house Negro went to the authorities. A house Negro by the name of Peter Prelude had told on the Denmark Vesey rebels, and that put down the rebellion. And so thus the city of Charleston put up a fort to put down slave rebellions. And in 1842, the fort converted into the Citadel Military College of South Carolina.
Okay, hold on. So my man was a slave.
Denmark Vesey.
He was a slave, and
No, he was an ex-slave who had been freed.
Ex-slave.
And he tried to start a slave rebellion.
Slaves.
Sir?
He was living in South Carolina among the slaves.
Correct. And he tried to start the slave rebellion in 1822. But word got out to a house Negro named Peter Prelude, who told his master, Captain John Prelude, who told the authorities, and that put down the rebellion, and Denmark Vesey was hanged. But they put up a military fort to put down slave rebellions in Charleston right after that. And in 1842, that fort converted into a school that is today known as the Citadel Military College.
Oh, now this is, I mean, we're going to get to what we were talking about before, but this is quite interesting. So my man is going to tell other slaves, we're going to rise up.
Right.
We're going to get our picks and forks and knives.
That is correct.
And stuff like that. And we're going to go out here and we're going to rebel. And that's going to give us our freedom. What is the rebellion going to do?
It's pretty much what you just said. They were going to hijack a ship in Charleston Harbor and sail to Haiti, which had already been freed by Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines when the Great Haitian Revolution, where they overthrew the French dictator Napoleon. So Vesey was going to hijack the ships after he shot up a lot of people in Charleston to sail to Haiti, where the African Americans could be free. But one of his lieutenants went and told the wrong person, the house Negro named Peter Prelude. And Peter told his master and was freed by the state of South Carolina.
For snitching, he was freed.
Yes.
Now, did the black folks find him and beat him up or something like that? Or how did he live the rest of his day?
Well, here's the thing about that. The elite house Negroes of Charleston basically treated him as a hero because, see, the house Negroes in Charleston were afraid of Denmark Vesey and his revolution because they felt that that would ruin their chances of getting the better food and the better clothes and relative privileges in comparison to the field Negroes.
All right, okay, hold on. We're gonna get to the point now. You got me on something here. At some point in time, if you are not a bad Negro, if you're not a bad slave, and the conditions are not so bad for you, you kind of accept that.
Right.
And
that's right.
Now is it a little bit of tug and war between you against the other Negroes who ain't got it so good?
That's correct.
Divide and conquer, you know?
Yeah. But see, Denmark Vesey was an exception in that he had gotten his freedom 20 years earlier, but he understood that as long as his brothers and sisters weren't free, he wasn't free because he still couldn't vote and he still couldn't go to court against white people and all of that. So he knew what time it was.
Okay, let me go right there then. Okay, my man got his freedom and he's living in the South with other people that are not free.
Correct.
Now, isn't there a rule that you can only live for a year when you get your freedom? Something
well, that depends on where you were.
You gotta go.
That was conditional. It depends on where you were.
Okay.
Some places had that ordinance and some didn't.
Yeah. So how can I be free living among non-free blacks and not everybody treating me bad because I'm gonna just show you a card said I'm free and leave me alone, sir?
Well, to a point, because again, basically you were in limbo because you had it slightly better than an enslaved person. But at the same time, you were still not able to vote and you still couldn't swear in court against white people and your movements and all that were still somewhat restricted.
Well, okay, I'm free. Can a white person just come and beat me up or something like that?
Yeah. Well, yes, that happened quite a bit.
What as a free person, what can I do to make a living and how can I be comfortable in my environment?
Well, you could be a carpenter as Denmark Vesey was. You could be an artisan, you could be a tradesman, you could be a minister. And in fact, he was in the AME church, we call them class leaders, but in the Baptist and the other black church, they call them deacons. Okay. You could do things like that. Yeah. And there was in fact one free black man named Bishop Daniel Alexander Payne who started a school for free and enslaved children. But after the Denmark Vesey Rebellion was put down, the state of South Carolina made it illegal to teach an African American to read or write. So Bishop Payne fled to Xenia, Ohio, and started Wilberforce University, the first Black college in America run by Black people.
Oh, okay. Now, so this kind of leads into the segue what we were talking about, Black folks fighting back.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of
example. Yeah, cite another example as you had told me about Black folks fighting back.
Yeah, one of the examples that I have in my book here tells the little known story of Cato Sherman. He lived in a town called Central, South Carolina. That's not the part of South Carolina, that's the name of the town was Central. But anyway, in 1887, Cato Sherman and his wife Delia, they were farmers. And they went out to a post-Christmas function.
Now they're free at this point because it's past 1865.
Yeah, this is 1887. So of course they're free. But, but then when they were out, they had their 14-year-old daughter, Lula Sherman, at home. So there was a mentally disabled white man by the name of Mance Waldrop, who came over to the house and he molested her and then killed her. So they came back and saw, they came back and they saw the child was brutally assaulted. And before the child died, she identified the victim.
You mean the perpetrator?
Correct.
Yeah.
The perpetrator, excuse me. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
So anyway, they held a trial in Central South Carolina. And basically he did confess and all that. And they were going to then go to before the grand jury. So Cato Sherman was with a bunch of his friends. Another white man came by the name of Gaylord Eaton. And Gaylord Eaton had been drinking and he convinced the other Black men that y'all need to do something about this.
Okay, let me stop you there. So is Gaylord, he's a cool dude and he likes Black people? Why is he for Black people trying to do this, or he's setting them up?
He's drunk.
Okay.
He was drinking at that point. So anyway, Gaylord Eaton volunteered to help the constable to transport Waldrop to the county jail, okay? However, Gaylord had tipped off the Black men. So the Black men then waylaid them and they captured Mance Waldrop and hung him and shot him to death. And they found his body hanging on the tree on December 31st, 1887. So an African-American witness named Jim Barry told the constable and all that Cato Sherman and his friends had waylaid and lynched this guy. So
hold on. Another Black guy snitched again.
Yes.
Okay.
But this story doesn't end out as how these other stories typically do.
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, this caused a lot of controversy in South Carolina because it was common knowledge that they did this because because Mance Waldrop had raped and killed his daughter Lula, right?
Right.
So there was an editorial that was reprinted in the Aiken and the Charleston newspapers that said this: white men had been lynching Negroes for the same thing since the war. And having set this example, we should not grumble if the Negroes imitate them when a like situation arises. In other words, what's good for the goose?
Newspaper saying that.
That's right. They're like, hey, what we would have done the same thing. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I got you.
But on the other hand, there were a lot of white people who were saying, we've got to nip this thing in the bud because, see, this is giving them ideas here. So they were locked up and they went to trial. In July the 18th, 1888, they went to trial. And ironically, and no pun intended, there was a hung jury because the jury couldn't, half the jury said, well, we would have done the same thing. And others said, well, we got to stop before these Negroes get too crazy, right? So anyway, some of them were freed and others of the posse remained in jail and Black people across the country had rallies supporting Cato Sherman and his comrades. So finally, in 1890, a group of Black ministers went to South Carolina Governor John P. Richardson to plead their case. And guess what? They were pardoned. And Cato Sherman, as late as the 1900 census, reported that he was alive and well with his wife Delia and their younger children, still farming in Central South Carolina. This man lynched this black man, Cato Sherman, lynched a white man for killing his daughter and lived to tell about it.
Let me ask you this, dear. Now, as we kind of interpret this story, if I'm a black man and you violate me, for lack of a better word, I'm super upset.
Yeah.
I'm super, and I know I'm gonna pay a penalty for whatever I do as revenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to get in my mind that, okay, well, I'm putting my life on the line messing with this white guy. Right?
Right.
And just the thought of me messing with him and the word getting out, I can be killed with no questions asked.
Right.
But I'm that upset, so I'm going to go for it.
Well, now this is his daughter.
That's what I'm saying. I'm that upset.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey.
And maybe his wife is in the background saying, "Oh, honey, just let it go. She's passed."
Well, we don't know that. We don't know if that's.
I know that part, but I'm just saying we can imagine his wife saying, "Oh, honey, that's our daughter. She's gone to heaven. I still need you for the other kids. Don't put your life on the line like that, just because you that upset." We could imagine that, just maybe that's what she might have said.
Hypothetically, okay.
Yeah. And so he probably spent how long in jail before he got out of the pardon?
6 months. 6 months.
And so, and then he went back to a normal life once he got out. Or did the white people come by his house burning crosses and all that?
No, he lived. I'm not sure exactly when he died, but as late as the 1900 census, he was alive and well with his wife, living on his farm and doing his thing.
Again, I guess it's hard to imagine white folk didn't seek, like, we ain't letting this end get away with this.
Well, now you have to remember, see, here's the thing about history that most people don't understand.
Yeah.
Everything does not always fit into a nice, neat narrative. There are exceptions in almost every case, and this is one of them.
And I guess what you're doing, and you're helping me understand, if we can put that in today's terms, given the understanding those outside aspects, in today's terms, the white folks, like you said, they were probably the only ones on the jury.
Right.
And some of them had a little consciousness to say, we would have done the same thing, so we can't convict them.
Exactly. Yes, that was the attitude of a lot of the white South Carolinians were divided on that issue. Some saying what you just said, and others saying, no, we got to nip this in the butt, right? But apparently the view that, look, we would have done the same thing prevailed. And so thus the governor pardoned him and all of that. And he was out of jail within 6 months.
Let me ask you this. Can you estimate this? Let's say just in South Carolina, if there were 1,000 white people, and maybe you can give me this better population number that's living there, what percentage of the white people of 1,000, or if you know the actual number, were slave owners and hated black people as slave owners? And how many of them you might say had a religious conviction and kind of was, I don't like this system of way of we doing things?
Roughly 1/4 of the wealthy white people of South Carolina were slave owners, roughly 1/4, okay? The rest of them were poor whites. But you see, there was a game going on here that's very important to understand.
Yes.
And that is the poor whites had nothing below them but the ground. They were, we used to have an expression down here called picking with the chickens, okay? So a lot of times when you're poor, the idea of being on the very bottom of society is intolerable to you. So what the wealthy class of white people did was they were exploiting the poor whites for cheap labor too. But as long as they could get them focused, yes, because see, here's the thing. The thing is this, it's divide and conquer, because as long as they could get the poor whites focused on the Negroes and distracted, the poor whites would not go to the true source of their problem, which was their exploitation by the rich white people. So the rich white people played a game of weapons of mass distraction, encouraging them to hate and look down upon black people and fight them when their real enemy was up there playing the both of them against each other. In other words, basically divide and conquer the poor so that the rich could stay rich. And that's what racism is all about, Charlie Brown.
Wow. So it was an okie doke on their own people.
But see, most people go through life never understanding that.
Yes, you done put it.
But let me give you a couple more. Now, going back to Charleston, in 1919, there was the Charleston race riot of 1919. Now, some of your viewers who are really into history know about the Red Summer of 1919 when you had race riots around the country.
Right, right.
In downtown Charleston, right after World War I, there are a group of white sailors getting drunk at a juke joint on this cheap, low-grade, rot-gut bootleg liquor. So they found a black child in the street and gave the black child $20 to go out and find them some more of this low-grade, rot-gut bootleg liquor. But needless to say, you give a poor black child in 1919 a $20 bill from these white men that he doesn't know from Adam's house cat, he is going to abscond with that $20 bill, and that's what happened with that black child. He took the money and ran. So when these white sailors realized that the black child had absconded with the $20 bill, they went up King Street, which is our main shopping street. They burned down Ferdy Gregory's Black Barber Shop, and they assaulted black people, and they lynched Isaiah Doctor, who was a distant cousin of mine, and another African-American named Anthony Brown. And they made the foolish mistake of going on Charleston's east side with this mess. Now, for those of you who don't know about Charleston, for these white sailors to go after they lynch somebody to the east side is like the Ku Klux Klan marching down Harlem on 125th Street. Because what would happen if the Ku Klux Klan marched on 125th Street in Harlem?
Yeah, that's not going to be good. Right, right.
Well, that's what happened on the east side. So the mayor at that time was a man named Tristan Hyde. And so the secretary calls him, "Hello, Mayor Hyde." "Yes, secretary." "The Negroes are, the sailors are now over on the east side." "They what? Oh my goodness. Have you called out the National Guard?" "Well, actually, Mayor, I've called the police." "What happened?" "The Negroes are driving out the sailors and the police with pistols, rifles, shotguns, and brickbats." "Oh my goodness." So she goes, "Well, Mayor, do you want me to call the National Guard?" He goes, "National Guard? They're on the east side. Call out the Marines." Because those black folks were shooting back, taking names, cutting behind, kicking rump. The mayor of Charleston, South Carolina had to call the U.S. Marines to put down the Charleston race riot on the night of May the 10th, 1919. And guess what? That was one of the only cases that we know of where the lynchers went to jail.
The white people.
Yeah, because you see, the mayor put together an interracial committee after that. And see, he knew that these black people on Charleston's east side, they don't play. So he's like, we're not going to have this happen again. These guys are going to jail. And they did.
Hold on, let me get this right. So who went to jail, the white people or the black people?
The white men who was doing the lynching and beating up black people and all that, about a handful of them actually were prosecuted and went to jail.
Now, but how many of them was it? I mean, you said it was just a group of white sailors. Did other white people join in with them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was buck wild. I mean, because see, in Charleston, they were going toe to toe with this. But then on the east side, you know, you had these black people that just didn't play. And see, white people then and now know you don't mess on the east side.
And so how many white people do you think it was that got involved?
Well, now, the sources of that vary because I've checked a lot of oral histories on that subject as well as the newspaper accounts. They basically don't give a set number. They just say that the streets were filled with people basically fighting with each other and shooting up in the streets and everything, because once the sailors got into it, some of the locals got involved. But then once it got to the east side, it's very unlikely that the local white people would have gone so far as to go to that borderline of the east side and mess with those black people there. The sailors tried that mess, and the local black community ran them out, shot them, you know, beat them up and everything, and threw brickbats at them. And even when the police tried to calm it down, the black people, like, for example, there's one story where the police tried to disarm a vehicle filled with black men, and the black men pulled out their pistols at the police and drove them off. Now, many of your listeners and viewers are familiar with the Tulsa Massacre of 1921.
Right.
Now, the story that you get on Facebook and YouTube and all these other things is that the white community was jealous of the wealthy black community, so they burned it down. It wasn't that simple. Here's some actual facts on the subject, okay? That riot started on May the 31st, 1921,
Right.
when a black man named Dick Rowland was in an elevator and he either tripped over or fell on the white female elevator operator named Sarah Page, and she screamed and he ran out of the elevator. Well, here's the part that you don't hear.
Right.
Is that a group of Black World War I veterans went to the jailhouse armed to the teeth to prevent Dick Rowland from being lynched. And at the same time, white people had these rumors that Black people were going to shoot up the town. So both of them met at the courthouse in Tulsa, and there was a brave brother by the name of Obie Mann who had his gun. And so one of the white men walked up to him and said, "Nigga, what you gonna do with that gun?" And he said, "Crack, I'm gonna use it." And it was on.
All right. All right.
So they had a shootout. And then during the shootout, there was a one-legged black man named Horace Pegleg Taylor who got up on a hill in the Black community and hopping around on one leg with his rifle, he was picking them off left and right. So these people didn't just surrender the community without a fight. What happened though was that the white community, when seeing all this going on, they went on the telephone, on the telegraph wires, and got reinforcements from nearby communities. And that's how the community was burned out, because they were outnumbered. Now, the Tulsa newspapers were trying to give the impression that it was all the fault of the Negroes. But a couple of things to that most people don't know. There was this brave and beautiful sister, Miss Mary Jones Parrish. You see her right here?
Yeah.
Okay. She was a school teacher, and she wrote this. She told the truth about Tulsa in this book called Events of the Tulsa Disaster by Mary Jones Parrish. Though then there was a black lawyer by the name of B.C. Franklin, known as Buck Franklin. The city was going to take the land that was destroyed and use it for other purposes. Buck Franklin, black lawyer, and his legal team got together and sued the city so that to prevent them from taking the black people's land, and the black people rebuilt Tulsa, the Black Wall Street area, into something even better that they had before. And the great Dr. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois, came to Tulsa in 1926. And when he saw how those black people rebuilt that community, thanks to Buck Franklin and all these brave black people, he said, "Tulsa, I bow my head and take off my hat to you."
Beautiful story.
Yep. And let me add this too. Wait, there's a coda to this. Buck Franklin had a son by the name of John Hope Franklin. And John Hope Franklin was like Henry Louis Gates is, my friend Dr. Henry Louis Gates is today. He was the major black historian of his time.
And the other thing I do want to add, I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma to show my film. The lady who introduced me, the guy you said they accused of bumping into the white lady on the elevator,
Dick Rowland,
was her great uncle.
Woo!
All right. She tells the story, and everybody, it's all history. So, it all gets kind of convoluted and what have you, that him and the white chick was dating.
Sarah Page. Yeah.
Him and her was dating.
Sarah Page.
He would get on the elevator, kiss on her, fondle her, and everything like that. And then when somebody else got on that, but he had to stop. This one time, he didn't stop in time. The white man saw it, went back and told people. Well, the end of that story is that brother and the white girl got married in Massachusetts.
Now that I didn't know. The last one I want to talk about is of a great forgotten brother in our history who should be better known. This is the guy who did what Malcolm and others talked about. This is Robert Franklin Williams of Monroe, North Carolina.
All right.
He was a World War II veteran. And when he came back to Monroe, Monroe was run largely by this police chief who was the father of the segregationist North Carolina politician Jesse Helms. Robert F. Williams found and operated what they call the Black Guard of Monroe, North Carolina, which is it's a rural community about 50 or so miles south of Charlotte. And he had all these armed brothers who armed their community against the Ku Klux Klan. And there's a famous incident where Robert Williams and his men cornered the Klan in the alley one night when they were out to harass African Americans. And he said, "Where the hell y'all going?" And the Klan was like shaking. They were like, "Nowhere, sir. We aren't doing anything." So they pulled out. And so his men, as you see them all armed here, they pulled out their guns and said, "Get the hell on out of here." And they did. But on one occasion, when there was a race riot in Monroe, North Carolina in 1961, a white couple was driving through the neighborhood and the African Americans were going to attack them, but he helped them, saved them to get out of the community, and they charged him with kidnapping. So he fled first to Canada, then to Cuba, and then to China during the 60s, you see. And out of Cuba, he broadcast a radio show called Radio Free Dixie. So in 1969, they made a deal with him to drop the charges if he was to come back from China and so forth. And he came back in 1969. But while he was in exile, he wrote this book called Negroes with Guns that told his story and told his manifesto. So in Oakland, California, at Merritt College, 1966, these two students at Merritt College, you might have heard of them, Huey P. Newton and Bobby George Seal, read this book, and thus the Black Panther movement, and now you know the rest of that story.
Woo. Everybody, I'm telling you, this is what we do on Strong Inspirations.
No one can twist this into saying that I'm encouraging African Americans to go out and shoot people or anything crazy like that. Let me make that clear. That's not what this is about. What this is about is to show that African Americans, like anybody else, when it came down to it, they did what they had to do to defend themselves and protect themselves when attacked.
Everybody on Strong Inspirations, it didn't even take me a minute to figure it out, but my brother put it on us so strong. Thank you so very much for coming on our channel. Everybody subscribe, hit this video, like this one, tell people about it. This is what we do. Thank you so very much. I wish that, and I pray that you stay strong, you stay safe, you stay on your grind, you stay well, you keep telling these stories. We're gonna be back at you. We're gonna put the link to your books on the discussion. People get out and buy his book, buy my book, buy a Black History book.
Wait, one other thing too, I have a YouTube channel of my own called The American Storyteller, but you know what? We all in about the same thing, so I'm definitely gonna give this brother his props too on that. So
well, we're gonna subscribe to that, everybody. Thank you so very much. Have a blessed day. Stay strong. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay.